Well, hello there, and welcome back to Fire and Line Online. And as usual, all information is right here listed on this home screen. You need a ride, you need prayer, you need to get a hold of us. Whatever you need, the information's there. You can get a hold of one of us, and we'll take care of you. I want to encourage you to listen to the message today. I got a part 2 of a series, More Than Enough, that I've been doing, and it's called Come to the Table. Give it a good, strong listen to, and I know that God's going to bless you because of it. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button. It's free, don't cost you nothing, and who knows, it could change your whole life. Drop us a comment down below. Let us know your prayer request or whatever else you need to let us know. Last week we were reminded of a simple but life-changing truth, and that was what? That God is the one who provides everything we need. Not everything we want, but what we need. He cares for the birds in the air and the lilies of the field, and He promises to care for us, His beloved children. That means we don't have to be consumed by worry and anxiety. Instead, we can live in peace and gratitude and trust. And like I said, if you missed it, you can go back and check that out. But God's provision, like I said last week, leading to this week, it doesn't stop with our needs being met. That's not the stopping point. His care overflows into something deeper, and like I said, that's community. And though Fire and Line is about community, our goal is community. Not 4 walls and just us 4 no more. Our goal is to serve and be a part of the community. But it's good to be reminded about the relationships that we have and we maintain. And one of the ways that we grow and strengthen those relationships is how? Around the dinner table. Now I'm going, because Thanksgiving's coming up. We're having a big meal today. I'm going somewhere today. And just like what we're about to do today, I'll keep it in mind today during this discussion that we're having a meal today, because y'all are going to keep it in mind today while I'm having the discussion that we're having a meal today. I've already seen what's over there awaiting. So I ain't gonna lie, I'm gonna be thinking about it a little bit myself. I don't want it to get cold. I purposely made this sermon short today, and that's a promise, not just a generalized statement, because usually those are just generalized statements when I say that. But I did make it short today, because I want to do something else today as well. But just like we talked about, today be short and to the point, but we need to grow our best, and how we grow our relationships the best is typically at a table. And listen to what I got to say. One of the best ways that we can experience God's abundance is sitting at a table. A table ain't just a place to eat. It's a place where people gather, where stories are told, problems are solved. We have meals at our house still. We still have that weird thing they call dinner. And though lately we've been busy, and that's not every day, typically we have a dinner. We sit down, and I call everybody, and everybody comes in. We sit down and have dinner at the table. And there's not very many problems on this planet we haven't solved at the table. I don't know why it's not sticking. But we think that we've solved pretty much everything around Sunday dinner at home. If you ever watched the Blue Bloods, you know how they had the Sunday dinner? Well, that was kind of our thing for a long time. And every Sunday we solved every problem there was to solve. It seemed like the next Sunday everybody forgot, and we had to solve it again. But the point being, around the table is where problems are solved, issues get discussed, feelings get aired, and wounds can be healed, and where relationships are formed. A place where we're able to let our guard down just for a little while and be a family. Throughout the scripture, the table becomes a powerful image of God's kingdom, an invitation to belong, to be seen, and to be transformed by his presence. If you got your Bibles, I'm going to start today in Luke 14. I'm going to go to Hebrews 13. I'm going to go to Romans 12. And we'll see that God's table is always bigger than we expect. He invites the stranger, the outsider, and even the unlikely guests, and the ones that maybe other people just assume you wouldn't want at their table or to want to be at your table. That's who God invites to his table. We're all invited to his table. So at some point, we're all one of those people. Stay with me. And if that table's that powerful, being a place where God's kingdom breaks in and people find belonging, we need to ask ourselves, what makes that table so important in the first place? Why does God use something as ordinary as a meal to reveal something extraordinary as much as his love? And it happens at a table. My first point, a table creates belonging. When you're invited to a table, when you're invited to a meal, I told my wife this week, my boss called me, and my bosses are standalone guys. They're not social guys. And one of my bosses called and invited me to lunch. And I was on the other side of town. I'm like, yeah, I'll be there. It may take me 45 minutes, but I'm coming. He said, "Did Rob want you to come?" And I said, after all the years I've been there, it felt good, even if I couldn't have made it, for him to say, hey, let's sit down and have lunch together. And that got my mind thinking. And of course, then he was talking about business and everything. We aired out some of the company problems. But it was good to be noticed and be invited somewhere. A table creates belonging. And Hebrews 13:2, go there. If you have a Bible. If you don't, you should. But if you don't, that's okay. Put it up on the board if you have it back there. Is anybody back there working? Hebrews 13:2. Do not forget to show hospitality to strangers. One of my mama's gifts, one of my mama's strong points is hospitality. That's something she's always been great at. She could take one chicken and feed like 85 people. I'll never figure it out how she does that. And like, there was only one chicken, and kind of like the 5 loaves and fishes. You know, like, where did all this come from? You had one baked chicken. Yeah. She can lay out a spread out of nothing. Y'all know me, I spend $100 to feed 8 people. I don't know how to cook small. Everybody knows this. She got the gift of hospitality, and Jesus is calling all of us to have the gift of hospitality. What is hospitality? Hospitality is the friendly and generous reception and treatment of guests, visitors, and strangers, and it can be applied to both personal level and business level. On a personal level, hospitality is the act of making others feel welcome, comfortable, and cared for, extending beyond their basic needs to create a sense of belonging. We should all carry this gift. And if we don't have it, we should work on it. When we sit down at a table with others, something shifts. A meal gives us time to slow down. It invites conversation because it's awkward to sit at a table and not talk. That's when you're sitting at a table and no one's speaking, either you done spoken, the food's on the table, you going at it, and just, the rattling of the forks and all that going on, the chewing. But typically before that happens, there's discussion, because if I'm sitting at a table and everybody's silent, that's just awkward to me. Y'all? It's awkward. But it opens the door for conversation. It opens the door for connection, and it's a shared experience for everyone. Do not neglect to show hospitality to strangers, for thereby some have entertained angels unaware. In other words, the table it's never just about food. When you're sitting at a table with someone or around, if you know me and you know our history, we had a person come in beside us and buy some land and build a soccer field. And when I say soccer field, there was 300-400 Hondurans out there on Friday night getting it on. I mean, it was bad. We live in a private country road, and this our neighborhood got really crazy really fast. And over time, he realized he made a mistake, and he moved. But just last night, he's a man of God, and I try to be a man of God. And through the whole process, when we had disagreements, we never lost our temper. We never cussed each other. We never fought each other. It never came to that. And last night, we were sitting on his land with his cattle. He invited us over, and we sat down and had a meal together with the very neighbor you thought would have never have happened. In fact, he was going to be here this morning. Something happened. He was going to be in his church this morning. Relationships. And it started around the idea of him saying, why don't y'all come over? Let's start over and sit down together. A year ago, that wouldn't have seemed possible. But it happened last night around a table. And the fajitas were 10 out of 10. And we didn't have to make nothing. Well, a few times we just went. Everything was there. He took care of us. So next time it's our turn. Table ain't ever just about food. Last night was not about fajitas. It was about new beginnings. It's about making wrongs right. And just sitting around together repaired old wounds. Now think about it from Jesus' ministry. How often did we find him in the scriptures sitting at a table, eating with who? Tax collectors, Pharisees, his disciples, strangers. Meals for Jesus were never just casual hangouts, at least the ones written about. He ate more than is written. But the ones that are brought to our attention had a very specific purpose every time he sat down when a meal is written about. They're never just casual hangouts. They were moments where the walls came down, where outsiders became insiders, where dignity was restored in areas. At a table, people who might otherwise be divided by class, background, reputation are now suddenly equals, sharing the same bread, drinking the same cup, occupying the same space together, and just being together in an informal way. And isn't that what we all want? To belong? God knows that about us. He created us that way. Therefore, he prepares a table for us and calls us his children. And when we begin to live with that truth, that we're already welcomed, we're already loved, and we're already seated at his table, we find ourselves more willing to put out extra to put a chair for someone else. Gratitude grows when we remember that God made room for us, and generosity flows when we make room for others. That's the power of the table. It creates belonging, and what we're doing already after the service today, what we're doing, even though they can't come to the table, every meal you take out, you're bringing them to the table. In Jesus' name. Everything that we do reflects back on Jesus. It's more than just about eating food. The food is really just a bonus feature of the meal. The main event's a lot bigger than food. It's being part of a family, part of a community of believers. It's doing exactly what Jesus himself, shown by his example, wants us to do. Not just to eat, but to connect. Be the family he calls us to be, not just here today as a church family, but at your own tables at home. And you don't have to be blood kin to sit down and be a family at a table. Second, the table brings healing. When you're hungry and you can get to a table, good things are fixing to happen. Healing. The table brings healing. Luke 14, 12 to 14. Go there with me. And then Jesus said to the host, when you give a luncheon or dinner, don't invite your friends, your brothers, or your sisters, your relatives, or your rich neighbors. If you do, they may invite you back, and then you'll be repaid. But when you throw a banquet, invite the poor, the crippled, the lame, the blind, and then you will be blessed, although they cannot repay you. Repaid in the resurrection of the righteousness. It belonged to the first gift is belonging to the table. The healing is the second. Jesus said here not only to invite friends, families, and wealthy neighbors to their meals. No, he didn't say that. He said, when you have a banquet, invite the poor, the crippled, the lame, the blind, and you will be blessed. Now, I want to say this without taking too much of a side note. We have service every week, and there's people that you can invite every week. And those same people will give you that excuse after excuse after excuse why not to come to the table. Jesus said, stop it. Go out and compel the ones that I'm compelling you. Go out and find them and bring them to me. We can chase the same thing forever. He's saying, stop. Go out there and get who wants to be at the table. Invite who wants to be at the table. I got everything they need here. They got to want to come to it. Don't go out and knock them in the head and drag them. Bring to the table who wants to come. Those that are hungry. You ain't hungry, you won't go to the table. If you got enough, the table means less. When you need, the table means more. Jesus knew that the table could become a place where wounds are mended and dignities restored. Think about how radical that is. The people Jesus mentioned, the poor, the sick, the dirty, the unknown, the outcast, the ones who are usually pushed to the margins, unseen and unwanted, but at his table, they're not only wanted, they're honored. Jesus has shown us the Bible is a place where brokenness meets grace. It's a place where shame is lifted because someone finally says, you belong here. You matter here. You're loved here. You're needed here. There's people in this world that have everything they want, everything they think they need. And we're to pray for them. But they got to want what's at God's table. Be at his table. The truth is, I think every one of us at some point in life feel like we probably carry these kind of issues into a room at some point. The wounds of rejection, feeling like you may not belong, feeling less than, maybe carrying some old failure or loss. But someone looks you in the eye from across the table. When someone listens and shares and just hears what you got to say, listens to your concerns, you're doing ministry. You're operating in ministry. We tend to put ministry in these boxes. Well, if we go out here and we do such and such with ministry, you just sit down at a table and provide someone, just hear what they have to say. Show them a little love. That's what Jesus is calling us to do. Table becomes more than just a piece of furniture. It becomes a place of ministry. Let every table become tools of ministry and not just a place to sit down and eat. When we open our table of ministry to others, we're doing way more than sharing food. We're sharing hope, we're sharing love, and we're creating an environment where God's Spirit can move into restoration. That's called the gospel. That's called ministry. We don't heal people on our own, but we create the kind of space where God can sure meet them. Just like Jesus, who used meals as moments of redemption, we're called to their tables as places where broken hearts can be made whole. Number 3, the table extends God's kingdom. Now we're going to go to a parable. Go to Luke 14, 15 to 24. This is my last point. I told you, short and sweet today. The parable of the great banquet. When one of those at the table heard him say this, he said this unto Jesus, Jesus, blessed is the one who will eat at the feast of the kingdom of God. And Jesus replied, a certain man was preparing for a great banquet, and they invited many guests. At that time, the banquet, he sent his servant to tell all those who'd been invited, come now, everything is ready. But like I just said, but they all alike began to make excuses. The first said, I just bought a field and I got to go plow it. Does that sound familiar? Another said, I just bought 5 cows and I'm on my way to try to feed them. Does that sound familiar? Still another, I just got married. I'm busy. I can't come. All excuses. All reasons not to go to God's table. All reasons not to come to the table. The servant came back and reported this to his master, and then the owner of the house became angry and ordered the servant, go out fast into the streets and alleys of town and bring in the poor, the crippled, the blind, and the lame. And the servant said, what you ordered has been done, and they still room. He said, then the master said, well, then go back out in the roads and the country lanes and compel them to come in so that my house will be full. Go back out and find the ones that want to be here. Go back out and find the ones that are hungry. Stop finding the ones. Stop looking for the ones that have everything they think they want and everything they think they need, and go find the ones that are hungry.
Come on, brother. That's good.
And not only that, but he said, go out quickly. Get it done. The table's ready. Now get out there and find them. So that my house will be full. Because I tell you this, not one of those that were invited will get to taste a thing in my banquet. Jesus is throwing something down pretty deep right there. The invitations went out, and the original guests made excuses and refused to come. I don't know how many excuses I've had in my life trying to give somebody God. I'm trying to give you something. I would rather you just say I don't want it. At least that's honesty. Excuses. Well, I'd come, but I worked yesterday. So did I. Invitations went out, and they made excuses and refused to come. Go out to the road, the country lanes, compel them to come, and my house will be full. You see what Jesus was saying there? He said, God's table is never, ever closed. His kingdom is wide open to the world, and often the ones that the world overlooks, that's what we're to seek out. He's called us, his people, to carry out the invitation to our neighborhoods, our workplaces, and our communities. This is why the table matters so much, and this is why it's important to take part of these meals together, just like we're doing today. It's not about eating. Sit with someone you don't normally sit with. Become a family. Be a community. Talk. Don't just eat. That's the bonus. Be a family. Because we're all family in here. And I know some people don't. There's people that just don't like to eat what other people cook. I respect that. There's people that don't like to eat in front of people. I respect that. There's people that just don't want to eat. I respect that too. But come to the table for the community part of it. Don't worry about the eating part. That's a bonus. Unless you just don't want to, then it's not a bonus. Don't worry about it. Be a family. And it's okay, because God's table was never, ever, ever about food to start off with. It's about being part of the family and the community. It's not just a place for us to be filled. It's a launching pad for our missions. When we're sitting at the table, it's a great time to strategize what's the next mission. It's a great time to just say, hey, I need prayer for such and such. It's a great time to just learn each other. Not just a place to be filled. We invite people to sit with us. We're welcomed into their homes and to their life and to the church. We're acting out the gospel. And we're actively saying, there is a place for you in God's family. I think Kelsey puts that on our social media. You belong here. Not to fill a seat. Y'all know I care less about that. You belong at God's table to be fed what God is trying to get to you. You belong at God's table where you deserve to be loved and accepted and appreciated. And every extra chair that we have to set out, every meal we send out, every meal we share, every moment of hospitality that we extend becomes a preview of the great feast that's on the way. Something higher, something bigger. The wedding supper of the Lamb, where every tribe, every tongue, every nation will gather around the table of Jesus. So our question is today, are we willing to make room now that he makes the room for us later? Because when we do, the table becomes more than a meal, it's a mission. Table ain't just a piece of furniture to fill our stomach. It's a holy place where God's presence meets our everyday lives. At the table, belonging is created. People who once felt like outsiders discovered that through Christ, they are welcome, loved, and given a seat at a table where healing can begin. Wounds have been lingering for years are met with compassion, grace, and dignity when you share a table and a meal with someone. And is that not our mission as people who follow Christ? Thanksgiving matters. This is the community one out here. You're each going to have your own. Every invitation we give, every meal we shared, every chair we added is a living testimony that God's family is bigger than we can ever imagine and going to get bigger. And here's the best point. That's exactly what God has done for us. He welcomed every one of us when we were outsiders. He healed every one of us when we were broken. He gave every one of us a place in the eternal kingdom, and that's good news of the gospel lived out around his table. Because there's no logical reason God would want me at his table. But he came looking for me anyway. He said, come on. And now it's your turn to do what I did for you. So as we go from here today, let's ask ourselves, whose name belongs on our guest list at our tables comes next week? Maybe just not our relatives. I know one year, some people skipped the whole process and went to the truck stop and fed people at the truck stop that couldn't be home with their families. That's ministry in action. I'm not saying don't have Thanksgiving. I'm not. But when you're compelled into something like that, it's ministry in action. You can do the same ministry sitting at home with your own family. Don't ever underestimate the power of a meal. These meals, I vow to keep going until there's no church left. Because we are blessed, and the size that we are, and I don't care how big we grow and get, we're blessed that we have that, because a lot of churches won't do that anymore. I will never, ever, ever stop our meals where we get to sit down as a family and share a meal together until God says stop. And then I'll stop. But until then, we won't underestimate the power of what happens sitting together over there. As long as we don't get in the habit of sitting in the same little group every time we sit down. Be a family. So today, before we go enjoy Thanksgiving meal together, and that's on the, and I'm excited because I cooked some of that food and I can cook. I can throw down in the kitchen. You can't tell, but I can. But before we go take that meal, there's one that's far more important that we're overdue to have, and that's this one sitting over here together. Before we eat back there, let's take this one together today. Next week, I'm going to step further and we discuss how God provides. So far, we've talked about how God provides. Today, we talked about the power of the table. And next week, we're going to talk about what it means to live with overflowing generosity. That's next week. But for today, I'm going to let her take it from here.